What is up, everybody? Welcome back. The Orion Podcast is back. It feels like it's been forever since we've seen you. So let's get this thing kicked off, do things right. How about a little intro? Zach's nowhere to be found. He's running late. So there's nobody to hate the button. Welcome back, everybody. Man, it feels like it's been forever, and it has. We've been busy. Zach went to Disneyland. I went to Red Crest, and we're finally back here in the studio after a long time away. But we've got a special guest tonight that we're going to go ahead and hop on here. You might know him as the double-digit angler, multi-time KBF Pro Series winner, Mr. Dominic Doan.
What up?
You need to get a button. You need to get a button for your podcast, man.
I do. I want to get one of those Rode Stream Live controllers.
There you go. Cool. Yeah, I've not graduated to the controller yet. I've still got the Rode Mini.
Hey, sounds great. It sounds great.
Not bad. It does the job, man. For anybody that's looking to start a podcast or interested, I think it's a great start. It's a great kit, man. A little StreamYard, a little Rode mic, and then you're set to go.
Yeah, sounds great.
So, man, how's California weather?
California weather is just being bipolar, you know. It's not polar, but it's not. It's definitely. It just has a mind of its own, you know. It's sunny one day, and then all of a sudden rain will come in. You know, it's all over the place. I got a leak right over there on the what is it called? The door trim right over there that keeps on pouring rain. Yep,
dude. Like, you probably didn't even know you had it. I've heard that's actually a big thing because there wasn't rain for so long. Like, people's roofs and stuff had gone bad, and they didn't even know because you guys had been in such a dry spell.
Yeah, there's a lot of construction going on around the apartment that I'm in, but hey, we'll make do, man. Nothing a rag can't handle, you know.
Rags and buckets.
Exactly.
So, man, one of the things that we do for this Orion podcast is we always kind of like to intro, let our guests kind of tell the story on how they got started into fishing, how they fell in love with the outdoors. So, you know, with that in mind, I'd like to do the same for you and kind of give us a backstory and kind of preface, you know, how you found yourself here in the fishing world.
All right, so let's go all the way back.
Take us way back, as far back as you want to go.
We're gonna go way back. So I live near a lake or a pond made specifically just for kids. So 13 years and younger, I believe. It was called Choice Lake over in San Diego. And my dad, my mom, and all my siblings, we would go hiking there, and we'd see bobbers and line on the floor with little tiny hooks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I pretty much got hooked. My dad introduced me to catfishing, but he didn't really enjoy every single trip because I would always get snagged up, right?
Oh, yeah.
But surely, nonetheless, there was one day where I had my ugly stick and 20-pound test, and I cast it out there, and I felt like it was a snag. And then I handed my rod over to my dad, and he was like, man, snag again. Come on, And he reels, and then he starts reeling it in, and he's like, no, this is a fish. So he hands it over to me, and I could barely reel that sucker in.
Oh
But
man.
there's an old picture that I have in my my parents' album of like I'd say a 20-inch catfish that was easily over 6 pounds. And that's when I
Wow.
got hooked to fishing. And then not soon after that, but when my parents moved out to Santa Rosa, California, I went over to a creek called Yorty Creek. And back then I really had nothing to do, nothing better to do except for get into cars and motorcycles and stuff that would always get me in trouble. But I had my little trout rod with a little spinner on it, and I cast it out towards the riprap of Yorty Creek, and then all of a sudden it just went zzz, and it was like a 3-pound largemouth. And I was, after that trip, I gotta say, every week I was at the tackle shop asking, hey, what works? How do I get into bass fishing and etc. And the guys over at the Outdoor Pro Shop over in Roanoke Park introduced me to everything. There's a gentleman by the name of Mike. When I was, I'd say 10 or 15 years ago, when I was new to bass fishing, he literally gave me a free crawn arc, a free float tube, a pump, flippers, and everything to get myself introduced into bass fishing. He even gave me a GL2 G Loomis crankbait rod to get started. And
That's not a bad start.
Since that day, man, I got to give it up to Mike. And when I came back to Clear Lake, and I visited Roanoke Park on the way back, and I saw Mike over at Roanoke Park, the Outdoor Pro Shop, he recognized me instantly. And I don't know, that bond that we have, and how he introduced me and was so friendly to get me into bass fishing. That's one of the greatest things about the sport of bass fishing.
Oh yeah.
And that's how I got into bass fishing pretty much back in 2007. Yeah.
So like you found yourself in a float tube, obviously at the start here. So
Yeah.
where did the transition from float tube to kayak kind of happen for you?
So I was watching a YouTube video earlier, and it is so true that sometimes you got to let go things that you love, and sooner or later, if that love is meant to be, it comes right back to you, right? So
Oh yeah.
back in 2008, 2007, I got Rookie of the Year for Sonoma County Belly Boat Bass Club.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a float tube and pontoon boat club only. And it was one of the Bassmaster chapters. And that club taught me almost everything I needed to know without a graph. Everything. And I took a long break actually after fishing 2007, 2008 religiously. I almost found myself at Clear Lake on a pontoon boat for almost like 200 days of the year.
Oh man.
And then shortly after, I tried getting on the bass boat scene a little bit, but I found that I was running too much compared to fishing. So after that, I took a break. I took a long break, and then here and there, I would visit the lake and try to fish SoCal, and it was totally different.
Right.
You can't fish your 20-pound test line. Well, you can for those swim baiters and A-riggers, but back then I was like 20-pound test everything jig fisherman, because back in the days, Clear Lake, all you would fish is a jig. But I kept on watching these videos of fishermen, and I saw Greg Blanchard on YouTube.
Yeah.
And during COVID, I was like, you know what? It's about time I buy a kayak. So my first kayak was a 106 PDL. I got it for $1,200 secondhand. And I was just working over at one of the little ponds that I lived nearby, and hooked a couple 5-pounders. And then I instantly got hooked again. I found my love again for bass fishing, and now here I am. Pretty much, I switched over partly because of Greg Blanchard. He was a great influence in my life, and I kept on watching his Clear Lake and Delta videos, and I was like, I want to compete at that level. I want to compete at that level, and not only do I want to do that, I want to take it back all the way from 2007 when I tried to do video content creating on Facebook. And I wanted to continue that journey, resume that journey, starting, I believe, I think it was 2020 or 2022 during COVID.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So,
yeah.
like, starting out and getting back into the tournament scene, I mean, what does the tournament scene look like in California? I know it's a little bit different than here in the Tennessee River, I guess you should say heartland, you know, in the Midwest. I mean, you guys got a little bit different setup out there, right?
Definitely. So our lake's a little bit smaller than, of course, the Tennessee River, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I got my fair comparison because the last 2 years I've traveled tremendously across the country. Every year I made it a point to kind of compete at a national level by traveling from all the way from California to Cattle Lake and Kentucky Lake. And it is tremendously different. Here over in SoCal, you have a pond, or you don't have a pond, but you have a lake. And pretty much you could wrap around almost every single lake and cover the whole entire lake. Not every piece of the bank, but you can run across the whole entire lake and then run back and you'll be fine on batteries. Versus, you know, we got the Delta that you might need 2 batteries for the Delta. But you won't run into that problem until you start going up north. So down in SoCal, no problem. 100 amp hour, you can get through the day, no problem. When you hit the Delta or Clear Lake, you might want to add a little bit of juice to your boat just in case.
Right.
But how they do that, when the lakes fish small, we usually have like a max capacity of like 50 kayakers. But some clubs we pull around 76 to 80 kayakers down south of California. But when you go up north, that's when you get the big boy tournaments, when you get 120, 150 kayakers all in one water. Wow. And usually they'll host that over at Clear Lake. They'll open up many launch ramps, and usually they host it at the Delta as well. But I mean, I ran into a little bit, you know, we always got to adjust to strategy, and sometimes you'll pull 120 boats on a smaller little lake, for instance, Folsom. And then you got to just adjust your strategy and figure out where you want to go. And how you want to cover water and kind of like measure the distance between spot from spot.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So when you're out there and you're fishing, I mean, obviously it's a lot clearer water, and you guys are chasing some pretty daggone big fish out there. Oh, yeah. I've got to assume the name Double Digit Angler comes from somewhere.
No, you know, I'm a true phony right there. You know,
man.
I made that up when I resumed my content creation. So I do not have a double digit under my belt, but if you believe in yourself and you put yourself in that potential double digit land area, I feel like everybody's a double digit angler trying to fish for that double digit. I'm not claiming that I caught one. I'm just always trying to catch a double digit every single time. Usually not during a tournament, but every single time when I'm doing those monthlies, that's all I'm thinking about. You know, I'm chucking a Hog Farmer double A rig, trying to catch that, you know, that double digit that everybody's chasing. And I'm pretty sure it's the same reason for everybody that gets into bass fishing. They're trying to catch that double digit bass.
Oh,
you know,
100%, man.
If it ever If it ever is a largemouth, or if it's a 8-pound spotted bass or a 9-pound spotted bass, I mean, you name it. It's a life-changing moment.
I think 10, to get to double digits, to get to 10, I think for
Mhm.
I'm going to say pretty much everybody, and I'm going to call it the upper 85 to 90% of us that have never busted 10. That's the holy grail.
Yeah, it
Uh,
is.
if
It
if
is.
you can bust 10, I feel like that's quite possibly that's a once in a lifetime fish. I mean,
It is.
8 for Indiana is really really good if you can catch an 8-pound largemouth. I mean,
Right.
not saying that 10s and 12s haven't happened,
Mhm.
but they're very few and far between. If you can bust 8, you've pretty much got the trophy fish in here in Indiana. But
Yeah.
down south you can get into the 10s pretty. I mean, Chickamauga, for example, any
Right.
cast, I mean, could be that 10-pound fish.
Really?
Um, oh yeah, yeah, it could happen at any moment on Chickamauga. I mean, they're there.
Yeah.
You'll get into a lot of them. I know when we was down there last year, we was kind of in the pre-spawn time or
Mhm.
post-spawn. We was post-spawn, and I caught probably an 8-pound fish size-wise, lengthwise, but she had
Mhm.
flattened out from you know the spawn, and she could have been so much more.
Yeah, that's the problem is that we don't get them in that right time, or for
Yep.
instance, they don't get that bait fish that season, then they're all going to be 8 to 9 pounders. I came pretty close. It was a pretty flat out fish. It was 25.75 inches,
Hmm.
and it was 9 pounds 6 ounces, and I was about 10 ounces short of a double
Right.
digit, and I fished my butt off. I say last year I'd probably hit the lake 3 to 5 times a week to
Hmm.
try to chase that double digit, and I was only able to catch 1 9, and plenty of 7 pounders, but just that infamous like 10-pound number is just so hard to get. But I don't feel so bad because Butch Brown that I fish. I don't know if you've heard of Butch Brown. Have you heard of him?
No, I'm not.
Butch Brown caught over 400 fish that were 10 pounds to 17 pounds, I believe, or 18 or
Wow.
19. And he's chucking a HUD almost all the time. A depths to 50. I know he throws spinner bait here and there, but not that often. He'll usually throw the bigger baits.
Right.
But I'm fishing right beside him, and he only caught 2 double digits last year. And when I talked to him over at the expo for the Pacific Coast Fishing Show,
Hmm.
he told me that it's one of those cycle years. It's on the down cycle, but be sure, like, after we get all that rain, all those nutrients flowing, and all that new cover that's going to be there in the water,
Yep.
those double digits are going to reappear. They're going to, the 2 years ago, he stuck 24 double
Wow.
digits. So
That's
he was
crazy.
like, you don't have to really go anywhere. Just stick with your lake that you have the most confidence in, and you will run into a double digit when that cycle has
Hmm.
produced more double digits.
Now, talking about the cycle, is there a time of year when you guys particularly see the bigger fish? I know, from around here,
Mhm.
it's usually pre-spawn, and then, a lot of times you'll see them starting to get bigger again as they strap on the feed bag for fall.
Right.
But they're again considerably different weather than what you're dealing with. I mean, you can pretty much fish all year round. So,
Right.
how do those seasons do they break down differently for you guys than they would here in the Midwest where we have the sub-zero weather?
Definitely. So last year we did not have any rain. We had very little rain. So
Hmm.
these fish were so confused that there was no winter time.
Right.
There was it was pretty much fall bite from October or November all the way until spawning happened.
Hmm.
So our waters don't really dip that low, and it almost like you can go out during wintertime and it feel like summertime sometimes,
It'd be all right. I wear shorts.
right?
I think so.
Yeah. Those Indiana anglers, I know a few that I met at the ramp from the last national championship, and I mean they're running over at Kentucky with 20-degree weather. They can handle cold fronts, no problem. And I'm
Yeah.
there. I'm like, I have to get off the water during practice. I'm like, I'm going straight to Walmart to pick up some real tree
Get some more
apparel.
clothes.
Exactly. Put on some long johns and some wool socks and then try to battle out these bass, because I tell you what, we didn't have those cold fronts like we did over at Kentucky. There's something different about Kentucky.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just a Midwest thing. I mean, these cold fronts, they swoop down. I mean, dude, it's like constant. We'll
Yeah.
have like 3 in a week. I mean, it's common. It just happens.
I don't know how you guys do it.
I,
You guys do it.
you just get used to it, man. I don't know any other way to put it. It's just like you just acclimate and move on. Like
Yeah.
it was, so today it was 50, the weekend it was beautiful.
Mhm.
Or no, a few days before the weekend it was beautiful, and then bam, the weekend hits and it's like 18.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, when you look at it like that, it's like when it turns 30, it's like I'm good to wear shorts again. So
do you wear merino wool layers on the daily basis?
No, dude, like come March 1st, it's like March 1st is like official shorts season. There's no going back at this point.
Shorts and flip-flops?
No, I'm not a flip-flop guy.
Oh, okay.
I'm scared of hooks in my feet, so I'm not a flip-flop guy. I'm
Oh.
a full closed shoe guy. And since
do the
I'm
same.
a pedal guy, I always have the studs in my pedals. Like I get the OG mountain bike pedals, and I leave all the studs sticking out. So I like to have my shoes on, so it gives when my feet get wet, I still got traction on my pedals.
Yeah, of course.
So, but that's awesome, man. So you've won a couple big events out there. Let's talk about those real quick, if you don't mind.
All right. So Pro Series, my first win. Okay, let's take it back a little bit in time. At the end of 2021, it was pretty much, I was new to the kayak competitions, and
Right.
I would always bubble. I tried my best to make it into the West Coast Championship in 2021, but I pretty much tried to limp in, meaning that there was only 2 or 3 events left in the season, and no one knew about me. No one. Who's this guy? Like, he's in a 106 PDL. Like, he has no motor on his boat. He doesn't have no live scope. Who is this dude? And I kept on failing. I kept on running into like 11th place, just short of like the cut to make it in the West Coast Championship. So I backed off a little bit. I went to the Urban Angler Club. It's just a local friendly club where everybody becomes friends, buddies. Majority of the time, there is sometimes,
there's
the crap talk and etc. But I kind of just, try to keep it positive. And so I fished 3 Urban Angler tournaments, 3 in a row. I got top 3. And I was studying my butt off with the graph, fishing new lures, just getting back in the groove. So I took a step back, went on a club level. I told myself, if I can consistently get top 3s, then I'm cut out to fish the bigger league, the big boys club, know? So 2022, I made it a point. I made it a point to be like, all right, guys, we're going for broke this year, right? So I studied my butt off. There was always like a 2 weeks cutoff point for every single tournament. So I would show up 3 weeks earlier. I would scan the whole entire lakes for rock piles and for submerged brush and etc. So here comes San Vicente. I've never been to that lake period in my life, right? So I go out there about 2.5 weeks before the cutoff time, and I'm just rolling around, and I see fish. I see fish everywhere on beds, and I'm like, okay, this is 2.5 weeks prior to the tournament. If they're on beds right now, they're going to be full blown, either post spawn or half half of the bass are going to be on beds, right? So day one of practice, I threw a jerk bait and I'm catching nonstop 13 to 16 inches almost every 10 casts around the whole entire lake. And I was like, dude, I just can't catch a fish over 18 inches, over 17 inches, because here 90 inches or high 80s will probably get you first place. But if you're catching nonstop 15 inches to 16 inches and you're in the low 80s, you're not going to cash a check. So on day two, I told myself, hey, we're gonna fish deeper, and we're gonna find some submerged brush piles back in the coves. And there was a ditch that was probably backed off by 2 points over, 2 secondary points into a creek arm. And I saw a mark on my live scope in a ditch. So I cast it out there, little shaky head. And right when it hit the bottom, bang, I set the hook 18 and a quarter. And I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the tournament. I'm not going to catch any more fish. I'm going to put down my rods and I'm going to start marking these marks. So I put down my rod and I mark here, mark there, mark here, mark there. Went around the lake to another protected like cove area with a slow tapering point with submerged brush. And I marked this spot and I called it a day. By 1 or 2 p.m., I was like, okay, I'm going to go into the water. I'm going to go home. I'm going to re-rig everything and then take back what I learned from day 2 and just do that and put down that jerkbait rod because I already knew that was in a winning pattern. That was just a quantity pattern. So tournament rolls up. Every single brush pile I found that was submerged anywhere from 10 to 25 feet of water, there was a fish just hanging around. They were either a spawning fish that was spawning in 15 feet of water. And believe me, when I say it is when you're fishing San Vicente in California, you can get 10, 15, 20 feet visibility there.
Oh yeah.
So I definitely believe fish do spawn in those deeper areas. Every single drop with the drop shot, I saw fish instantly react to my bait and swim right towards that drop shot. All I would have to do is drop it down on them about 5 feet with them within that area, and they would just race down and charge at that drop shot bait. So I just hold on and I'd feel the weight and I'd set the hook. The first 30 or 40 minutes, I had a limit of like 78 inches. And I was just like, okay, we're just going to do that all day. So every single brush pile I found, I was just dropping on them. Either a post spawn fish that was hugging towards a secondary brush pile after it had spawning, or a spawning fish that was spawning deep. They would be just so charged up that every single fish that I dropped on, bang, caught them. Right.
Nice.
Day two rolled up. The bite totally changed. All those fish that I had caught were reacting differently, and I couldn't catch the same fish. So I also noticed on my forward facing scope. So I would go down the bank and I would face my transducer to the left. If I was fishing to the right off the bank, face it to the left, and I would see these random marks out in like 30 feet of water suspending just below the surface.
Right.
And I was like, well, these fish are probably post spawn ready to eat. So I grabbed my 2.8 Kayak, tossed it at those marks to the left side, opposing facing the bank, and every single drop, they would just eat that little 2.8 Kayak every single time. And I very rarely reeled my lures those 2 days. So every single fish, I'm plucking them, suspending in 25, 30 feet of water, plucking them. And I got kind of riled in the middle of day 2. I got pissed because one of them ate it, swam into a brush pile, broke me off, and that would have been my third fish. And I kind of lost balance, and I tripped over my seat, and I fell in the water, and my Mustang life jacket plooped up.
Oh yeah.
And I was fishing the whole entire day with that puffed up life jacket because I
Yep.
couldn't take it off during a tournament.
Nope.
But throughout the whole entire day, I pretty much worked on those suspending fish, never gave up to the very last minute. If there's any piece of advice for anybody on the tournament circuit is, you don't let up with these guys with the big league. You fish your heart out every second of the day. You don't let up. Even if you have 97, 98 inches, you chase for that 100 no matter what. If you're fishing a 3-day event, maybe you could stop at 99 and not wear out like a specific spot where you caught that 99 inches, but continue to cover new water, continue to replicate the pattern, and fish your butt off every single second. And that's what I did. I won by 1/4 of an inch that tournament. And the only reason I won it is because I practiced my butt off and I spent every second of the tournament until lines in. And still then I didn't even know I had it.
Right.
That was my first pro series. My second pro series was I'll just wrap it up shortly. It didn't mean as much as San Vicente, but Lower Otay, I won my second pro series. And that was fishing 2 complete opposite patterns. One on deep rock piles, and then one I came across a magical mat. And I tell you what, make sure you write down your new identifier the night before, and don't forget, especially on those dual events when there's KBF and American Bass going on, make sure to write those identifiers the night before and verify, because I had the wrong identifier on for one tournament, the KBF Pro Series tournament, all the way till 10 a.m. So all those fish that I caught first thing in the morning till 10 a.m., they didn't count. So what I did is wrote down that new identifier. I had my buddy John Dumonet right next to me, and he was like, "Yeah, I have an identifier for you." And I wrote down the new identifier, and I continued to fish. I found this grass mat about in 5 feet of water, and there was just shad all over the edge of it, a shad spawn going on. And these bass would be going in and out, in and out, in and out of that weed edge. And I kid you not, like I said again, that forward-facing sonar, I pointed that thing to the right this time towards the mat, and I could see all the fish coming in and out. Every 2 casts, every 3 casts, I stuck 79 inches. I caught 15 fish, probably the size of my 2 kayaks.
Wow.
Probably 24 feet. 24 feet. 24 feet wide grass mat. Pitch it, fish on. Next cast, nothing. Pitch it, next cast, fish on. It was lights out. And then with 35 minutes to go, or hour and 30, I was like, okay, I have 79, but I need to jump up anywhere in like 83 inches. I need to cull one of these 15s. So made it out to a deep rock pile that I fished on day 1, and first cast on a vertical cover in 18. And that helped me cull probably 4 inches to get around 83, 84 inches, and took my second Pro Series win pretty much after that.
Nice, dude. Nice.
Yeah.
So as you're going through, you've kind of got the tournament thing going on, and now you're seeing you're making a shift in a way towards producing quality content, I think is the best way to put it. Some of your stuff, all of your stuff is really well done. You spend a lot of time on it. How important do you feel that is as this sport continues to evolve with the social patterns that we're seeing now? Do you feel like content is something that you want to pursue deeper than the tournament fishing, or do you feel like you want to really combine those 2 items?
For me, the drive is always being the most consistent angler in the field. Like competition is in my roots. I just love it. I love competition, and for me, that's the biggest drive, is always being that guy that always puts himself in contention to win one of these big tournaments, and creating content is something that I love too. It's something that I've always done ever since the GoPro Hero 2, ever since mini DV tapes were a thing.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I record vlogs back in the days, with my long hair when I was a younger kid, and I'd always try to film, whether if it was snowboarding, cars, motorcycles, fishing. I was always vlogging my stuff back in 2007. I just never continued it like I've done now. And taking a step back in my normal job and video production. I used to be a owner of my own video production studio, and I took a step back during COVID, and I examined my life, and I was just like, well, like, I'm not getting any younger, and now's the time to do it if I'm going to start doing this content creation. And it kind of opened my eyes up to model, like before as a video production owner, I never thought about it on the client side. I never thought to
Right.
put my shoes in the client side. And now that I am my own client, I am my own business entity, now I know kind of like the algorithm and
Right.
what makes people tune into your video for so long, and so it actually gave me a different perspective. Before, I was like, let's make this cool video, high quality, let's shoot with an RE Alexa Mini.
Yep.
It's like a $50,000 for you guys that don't know in fishing what an RE Alexa Mini is. It's pretty much a $40,000 or $50,000 like Ferrari of movie production and commercial productions, right? So I always thought of it that way: quality, 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 and what's cinematic and etc. What's the
Right.
best lighting, right? But then now I'm in the shoes of like a client. Now I'm like, okay, what's going to keep these viewers keep on watching? What's going to be good for the sport
Right.
of kayak fishing, right? What's going to keep on people? What's going to keep on driving sales for like Newport vessel motors, Jackson kayaks, Orion coolers, Motor Guide XI3s, Hobie PA14s. It's going to be the entertainment that's provided through all the social media content. Oh,
Yeah.
what's that guy have? Why is he rocking the XI3? Oh, he won this tournament. Maybe I should pick up that because that's a useful tool that he's using
Yeah.
to catch this fish. So I kind of combine my two loves for content creation and fishing, and I combine those two together, and that's what kind of drives me to keep on doing what I'm doing. And I don't know, man. I want to make an impact in someone's life when they watch my video too, and encourage them to try to compete at a higher level, and just catch more fish. That's the true goal of it. And help the kayak community, help the kayak industry, promote sales, but in the most organic way.
Oh, yeah. I think when you talk about the organic way, I mean, that is showing other people the lifestyle that we all lead as kayak fishermen, as anglers, and really bringing them and making them feel welcome into our community.
Yes, 100%. Because if it weren't for all those friendly people that I've come across in the kayak community, I wouldn't have gone into kayak fishing. And one of them was like Shane Matos, and I met through YouTube, and my pedal drive got seized up, and he helped me fix that pedal drive. And it's the little things that really do count, but it's what YouTube literally helped me build that connection with other kayakers out there. And now I have a group that I can always fall back onto. And Kayak Ditch Day is one of the groups that I always flock back to when I had a bad day of fishing, or if my kayak has any problems, or I need a rod built. So I need to call up Shane Matos S&M Custom Rods, or my kayak doesn't work anymore. Can I take it over to hook a brother up? Like, I'm always, all my friendly connections in the kayak community through YouTube, through bass tournaments, man. They've just been so friendly and helpful that I couldn't do it without them, for sure.
Yeah, And they continue to grow, I think, and that's
Yep.
the cool thing. I mean, you're meeting through your podcast that you're doing
Mhm.
on your channel. You're meeting a lot of new faces and getting to
Yep.
put in some time and make connections through conversation, which I think will be huge as you continue to move along.
Yeah, and I was able to meet you, Chad, and
Yeah,
you know,
Z Pros,
Z
Z
Pros,
Pros.
like, dude, we have hell of a sticks over at Z Pro. We got Rolando Nandin that just won
Yeah,
the Hobie BOS event over at Cattle Lake, and it died. I just died inside because I was like, I watched I forgot his name already. Nolan Meyer.
yeah.
His video over at Cattle, and he was chucking day 2, he was chucking the chatterbait all day. And he was just catching them right next to those cypress trees, and it brought back memories. And I just died inside. I was thinking, man, I wish I made it to that event. I really did. Cattle's like one of the best fisheries out there, and oh man, I love that. I love that lake. Yeah,
It was cool. I mean, yeah, we had a couple fired off a few wins there on Team Z Pro, and that was cool to see, man.
yeah,
It was a good week. I know it had Michael and the rest of the guys fired up as well, so it
yeah.
was good to see. And it's a great battery for anybody that's looking for a battery. Not to give you a shameless plug on somebody that we just happen to both be working for, but yeah, the quality is there. I've got the 30 amp hour. Dominic's got some bigger batteries than I do. But yeah, two outings, no charge for me, running my power pole, nav lights, and my graph. And, that battery stayed well above 12 volts, and, it's still got power where I could probably go hook it up and get a little bit more time out of it, but I probably
Right.
ought to charge it first.
So what graph are you running on your?
So I run a Lowrance Elite 9-inch screen.
Elite 9. So
Yep.
30 is like the perfect
Yeah.
battery.
And that was the cool thing, I think, in meeting Michael, as I'm sure he went through things with you. He kind of sits down with you and says, okay, what are you doing with your battery?
Yeah.
And, I kind of told him what I was running, and he's like, okay, well, this is the battery that you need. And,
Right.
he's just amazingly smart with what he's able to tell you about the battery. He really understands the battery. And I think that's what makes the Z Pro battery so special is just Michael and his knowledge of the technology.
It's good to know that the owner has a PhD in lithium batteries.
Yeah.
That's his passion. He might not be the best angler out there,
Right.
but he knows what he's talking about. He knows the intelligence of our batteries, and he hooked me up with a 50, a 30, and 100. And I tell you what, like these new graphs, we need lithium. We need the Z Pro lithium because, I mean, my amp draw on my 10-inch screen, and I mean, it, like everybody's trying to go 10, 12,
10, 12.
Forward facing sonar, 360 mega live, active target. All those have a bigger amp draw. And the new Garmin's that was released, I'd say a couple months back, the new UHD2s, they're all 3 amp draws.
Yep.
Minimum. So when you run the 10-inch or 9-inch screens that require a 3 amp draw, and then you run lights, and then you run live scope, be sure you better have like a 50 amp hour, 30 amp hour to power them almost individually, unless you have a big battery like a 30 amp hour and you're running, let's say, a 9-inch screen that has like a 2 amp draw or less. Then it's safe to say you can add that with a navigation lights and etc. But when you get into these bigger tournaments in SoCal where everybody has active target, everybody has live scope, I'm kid you not, maybe 90% of the field has it. You better have the right batteries, and if anybody has questions at all, they can hit me up or they can hit Chad up, and we can give you our best recommendation. But that's what I'm running on my boat. I run a 50 for my 10-inch, my 30 on my live scope transducer, my black box, and everything else I attach to the 50 as well. What are you going to say?
It really sucks when your power pole gets stuck down too. Like
Oh,
when you
really?
run out of power and like
Yeah.
you have to like walk to the back of your boat and try to pull that stake up out of the water, that
Mhm.
sucks. So make sure you've got a battery that will last the day and that is
Oh, you had that
efficient to use.
experience. You had that
Oh,
experience.
yeah, I've had that experience. It sucks.
So, I mean, more power. Would you? I mean, you probably recommend it. Like more power, the better to
More
last you
power,
at
the
least.
better. Yeah, just make sure you've got enough to get through your day. And like you said, talking to somebody like Michael can go a long way. So,
Yeah.
reach out, ask those questions, get fitted. I
Yeah.
guess would be the way to
Exactly.
put it. Like kind of like buying a brand new bicycle. Go get fitted for your bike to make sure it fits you right. Same
Exactly.
thing with your battery.
And when you come when you go to Michael or you go to one of the Z Pro sales rep teams, make sure you just tell them what amp draw that you have on your current graph, and they'll recommend a battery that'll last you all day and maybe two.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different graphs out there. There's
Oh
nines,
my
there's
gosh.
tens, and they don't all have the same amp draw. Like
No.
I thought literally I could upgrade to 1 more inch and get similar battery life compared to a 9 inch, but I was
No.
totally wrong. You got to beef up all the batteries.
Yeah, and you just get a few more pixels in your screen. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody says, "Oh, I can see just fine." It's having that bigger screen and having just a few more pixels, I think,
Yeah.
and a strong battery to make sure that it is got the power to show you what it needs to show you.
Right.
I think
Right.
that goes a long way. And it's easy to get caught up with, well, I'll just get something cheap that's easy, and that's not always the best case when you're dealing with your electronics.
Oh, never. I had a guy in his aluminum boat. He was on the Urban Angler Trail, and he would always return every week his lead acid battery. He would always go to Walmart, get a replacement every other week. And I told
Oh
him,
man.
go with this 100 amp hour and you will not regret it. Going lithium, going Z Pro, you'll not regret going with his 100 amp hour. And he has thanked me so much after that.
I can
And
imagine.
and he's going all day without a charge on his trolling motor on his little aluminum boat. And I was just like, see, that's how that's how you fish,
Yeah,
you
that's how
know?
you're supposed to go.
Yep,
That's
exactly.
awesome, though. I mean, that's just a good testimony to the product and what it's about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're creating a lot of content now for Z Pro. And what are some of the
Mhm.
other places that you're working with that you're maybe creating a little content for now on the fishing side?
Um, are you saying other social media platforms
Yeah.
or so I'm
Yeah.
working? I mean, I tell you what, um, what's trending hard is all the reels possible. So
Oh yeah.
IG reels, uh YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Facebook Reels, even though that you have IG Reels, there's something about it. I talked to one of my social media gurus. He was like, dude, there's something about separating the two between IG and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And you can totally grab onto as many followers as you can and try to create a loyal following. But for me, it's Instagram and YouTube, just because I know my competition's there and they're doing really well over there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about having that option to go short or that option to go long.
Right.
But what I normally do for Instagram is I'll do all my educational reels on IG reels,
Mm-hmm.
whether if it's comes to a lead or not, what I do before a big tournament, for instance, the Yakabass Folsom event, and then I'll do my recap post. So I think
Right.
one of the most important things is to capture photos with friends and new friends that you make on tour. Um, for instance, I'm gonna call my series called the Yakabass series,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's gonna be powered by Z Pro Lithium, and I'm gonna be taking photos just with people that I meet along the way, because this is gonna be my first full year of fishing with the Yakabass. And I know I met James Snyder the couple days prior, and that was good to
Mm-hmm.
meet him. He was a fellow Z Pro tournament director over at Yakabass. I also met with friends that I haven't seen in in months, because I think there was Pua. I haven't seen him since the Delta, but I met him at my first national championship, and
Mhm.
he was one of the the most friendliest anglers that are willing to drive across the country just to compete at a national level. And I know we're going off a tangent here, but I always give my California guys that make the effort to drive across the country to compete at a national level. That's like something that unheard of. And I give all my friends that done that the utmost respect. And
Mhm.
I'm rooting for Damian Tao and AJ Ramirez that's going over to the Bassmaster Championship from California.
Oh yeah.
Let's root for them, a friendly root. I know you have your favorites too, Chad, but
I
that's
I've not really looked at the list enough to pick a winner for the kayak thing.
no.
For the kayak championship. No, I'm infatuated with the big boat one, so I guess this sounds bad. I guess I've kind of just ignored it, and not
Well,
really by ignored it. I've just kind of spaced it out, which is terrible of me to say, but I just not thought about it. I would probably. I know Matt Ball's going. I would have to
mhm,
pull for any of my JK guys that are going. I think it'd be cool to see one of them win. Obviously, for I think anybody that wins this event on the kayak side or the big boat side for that matter, it really is a life changing experience. So I think it's pretty. It's going to be pretty great for anybody and everybody
yeah,
that's out there and able to compete. And the
definitely.
Bassmaster Kayak Series it's come a long way. Steve Owens has done a great job with that, and seeing it blossom now. The photos that always come back from these kayak events are always pristine, and it's just my hope that one day we can watch these guys live on TV
Oh,
out there
it,
doing this thing. And I
yeah.
think that's the next big step, for kayak fishing.
I'm glad that we touching base on this subject, because I've been talking about this the whole entire time. And for those tournaments, I know I'm going to create drama here. For
Create a
those
way.
tournaments that block off the leaderboard by noontime or earlier, keep them on, because Dominic Doan, as an angler that's rooting for my homie that's over at Northern California or the East Coast, like, I want that leaderboard on, because it shows me live of what's happening, what my friend is placing during that
Hmm.
tournament. As soon as that leaderboard shut off, I have zero interest in that tournament circuit, just because, like, I want to see that live action going on. And MLF and Bassmaster does a great job of doing that. I'm tuning in for the first
Oh
time.
yeah.
I'm tuning in almost every single day, watching Dustin Connell,
Hmm.
watching Brian Thrift, Edwin Evers, checking swim baits,
Hmm.
and it's capturing all the drama in the video, live for you. So I definitely would like to see that in the kayak community, is
Yeah,
live.
and I think one thing, like being, I am more of a Bassmaster fan. I think at the end of the day,
Mhm.
um, having just come back from Red Crest, I can honestly say this, and I don't mean it to hurt anybody's feelings that might watch this podcast later, um, but Red Crest still has a way to go to get
Yeah.
to that level. I think when Thrift won, you know everybody knew he won. And when you look at the expo and what we were seeing as people that were invested in the expo,
Yeah.
Thrift's coming up to 100, 200 people
Mhm.
to get his trophy because everybody else already knew he had won that event. So it's like, okay,
Yeah.
well, whatever. We don't need to see him get his trophy. We already know he won.
Right.
Not where I think, like the Bassmaster Classic, they do shut off their bass track at a certain point throughout the day.
Yeah.
And the live cuts out at some point throughout the day. So you've got kind of this window where anything can happen, and it
Mhm.
creates just a little bit more of that drama to get you to come back to the weigh-in to
Oh,
see
I see. I
to
see what
see
you're
who
saying.
won,
Right.
to see somebody get that trophy, and to actually see that pure excitement,
Right.
whoever wins the Bassmaster Classic, you're going to see a level of pure excitement when they actually do hoist that trophy because they didn't realize they won until that moment.
100%. Yeah. I believe now that you said that, I can agree with that because having a live event on television and just shutting off the leaderboard in the last hour
Mm-hmm.
kind of allows all those companies that are invested in the event to
Mm-hmm.
come back to the show and announce a winner there, just
Yeah.
because it brings the community together physically.
Yeah.
It brings them there. But what I could see in the kayak tournament is if they hosted live award ceremony on social
Yeah.
media, that would
Yeah.
be something too. Is having everybody live at a certain point and then shutting off the leaderboard maybe within the last hour,
Mm-hmm.
but then having a live award ceremony at the
Kind of
end of the tournament.
create that drama, create that element of surprise. Because you've always got those guys that they sandbag a little bit right up into
Right.
the very last minute. So I mean, it's just like the guys on the Bassmaster series. Some of them lie. I mean,
Yeah.
you can tell right away. They
Oh yeah.
don't know exactly how much that fish weighs. They just approximate it, throw it in the box,
Oh
and then
yeah,
they
that's
move
a
on.
3-pounder when it's a 6 or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then
Yeah.
they come in. It shows them on Bass Track. They've got like 18 pounds, and then they weigh in. They've got 21. So
Exactly.
there is some fudging that goes on in that space, and I think it's kind of what makes it a little bit fun for the
Oh
spectator.
yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Now,
Definitely.
if we could actually get these tournaments to where, and I do think that that's the next step as we move forward with kayak fishing. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, watching Tourney X is like you can mow your yard and watch Tourney X because you're just going to make a couple laps and refresh. I wonder who's doing good, but you know, for guys like yourself, for me, and Josh Stewart's, Matt Balls, any of these other guys out there, I think to truly become a household name at a point, it takes
Mhm.
you know, that live TV aspect of it or that live streaming aspect of it to
Yeah.
where you start to form a visual relationship, I guess would be the proper,
Right.
because it's not a physical relationship. It'd have to
It's
be visual.
not
I mean, it's no
for
different than somebody watching your YouTube channel and relating to you from that space. They've made a connection to you from YouTube, even though you may not know each other. We're just
right.
not necessarily making that connection through words on a page as much as we would be if it was visual.
Yeah, exactly. And I met people over my channel nationally. Like I met Alex Sterling, and I met Chris Mitchell, and they're all different anglers of different states, and it's kind of cool knowing that I have some friends and family all over the whole
Hmm.
entire United States. It's like loyal to my channel, and I'm loyal to their channel or their Twitch or their
Hmm.
Instagram. Um, and I know I'm a fan of Dustin Connell. I'm just gonna say it right off the bat
Right on.
because I love watching his channel. I love watching Ben Milliken. Um, he's a stud out there, and
Oh yeah,
he just proved it to everyone that you
like
could
he's
show
legit.
up
Yeah.
and shell out. Yep.
Well, yeah, and Oliver Knight. I mean, he went out and he put up, and he did good. I
Yep.
mean, so I mean that was cool of him to do when he fished the Bassmaster Opens. They put them eyeballs on him and went for broke.
Yep. And I think there was Matty Wong. I cashed like
Yeah.
30 to 40 grand over at the Bassmaster Elite Series. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those guys earned it. Those guys earned it, man. It takes 4, 3, 4, 5, 6 days to
Mm-hmm.
win one of those suckers. I mean,
It's a grind.
when you call elite, those are elite
Oh
guys. You
yeah,
know?
and I think as we continue to grow, as kayak fishing continues to grow in that elite genre, which I mean, we do have the Hobies, we do have the Bassmaster Open Series, and the KBF Pro events, but the reality is, Joe Bob with his Pelican can just show up and enter at the same way that you and I can in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. So, with that being said, I think eventually we see something where it is, a pros world in the kayak fishing, and maybe that's when we see the sport just take another step.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. I always have that talk with my buddy Chris Cabral. He says there should be a pro series, and he's tired of losing to the same guys on a national trail like Russ
Right.
Snyder, Guillermo Gonzalez, Christine
Yep.
Fisher. He's sick of losing money to them. But I told him that the platform isn't there yet for
No.
those pro series anglers to come in and compete at that higher buy-in and to have all those sponsors. It really needs to go live and the next platform, and a non-endemic sponsor like Toyota needs to come in and take that seriously, just because I see it as that's a whole new community that you could target.
Yeah, we're still buying gas and we're still hauling boats.
Right, exactly. Still need a car to get there, still need a pickup.
Get there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And sometimes you need to launch at some muddy, gravelly area, and without all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive with one of those Toyotas, Chevys, or Fords, like, good luck.
Yeah, I mean, I drag a trailer around behind me, and I wet launch my boats. But there's still times, I just picked up my new Kusa X, so and I had a Liska beforehand, and I would throw that boat in the back of the truck, and we would just head off somewhere and just drag the boats through the grass to the water, and places where you didn't have a wet launch, where you couldn't, where you just needed to drag a little bit. And
you probably had some epic days just dragging your kayak to like hidden spots.
Yeah, we have had. I mean, we've got a little spot over here we call the quarry, or the hog farm for that matter. It's just an abandoned, well, it's not abandoned anymore, they're actually digging around it. It's a quarry hole. And then we've got a few river launches up north of us that just a little bit skinnier water, where we actually get out and we'll walk up river quite a ways, and just walk the skinny stretches and float the deep stretches. But we're always paddling upstream, and getting to the launch is actually a little bit difficult. And one of them, we've got to kind of lower them down over a hill, so there's no way we could wet launch them. So just truck bedding these smaller boats like the Kusa X just makes sense.
We're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to fly out there sometime, and then
there's a boat here for you. I can promise you that.
Okay. All right, just let me know when's the best time, and I'll bring my GoPros, rig them up, and
anytime, man. Like I said, it's there's always something to do. That's for sure. And there's plenty of boats laying around here for you to get in one. Trust me.
Well, I'm gonna have to check out one of those, either Take Two rigged with the motors, or
there's one here.
One of those Jackson Nars.
There's one here. So you're good to go either way there. We can even set you up in the bike. If you want to pedal, whatever you want to do, we'll set you up.
Well, that Take Two has gotten me. Like, by heart, I'm like, man. That's my dream kayak, is a Take Two rigged up, because I believe that is a SoCal killer. Because we have all the small ponds that are like open water, 40, 50 feet. So having spot lock with that, maybe a 70-pound thrust with a 24-volt, similar to what Derek Brundle runs, and spearing waves with that, and having all that deck space would be awesome.
Oh, it's gargantuan on deck space. Yeah. And I mean, I know before, when I was on your podcast, we hadn't officially shown that boat off yet, all completely decked out of Jamison's, and that was a show killer, man. I mean, like, everybody that came by the booth had to stop and look at that thing, because it was just, I mean, it was set up efficiently for what he wanted to do, and it was effective because it was simple, and it was an awesome setup just because it was simple and effective. Now, I'd have had a bigger screen. I tried to get him all weekend to buy a 15-inch Lowrance and get rid of that 9-inch and just have like a big TV just right there dead center on that track. Hopefully one day he will.
You're like one of my homies that have like a 12-inch Garmin. Like bigger is better, man.
Oh
I
man,
mean, I just want to fish with the best stuff.
I need a 15. I'm getting old. I can't see as far, so that's what I
Yeah.
blame it on these days. It's like I just need a bigger screen.
I tell
There's
you what,
nothing to
those
do.
bigger ones are like
Oh my
crystal
gosh,
clear. Those
dude.
I think it's the HDS Live 12-inch is crystal
Mhm.
clear. The Garmin 126V is crystal clear. The Hummingbird has like a 15-inch, I believe.
Mhm.
But yeah, what were you gonna say?
I've actually played with the 15-inch hummingbird
Mhm.
with the 360, and I love it. There's this fond place in my heart for that 15-inch screen with the 360, and I
Yeah,
like 360.
run
I
it.
I like 360, man.
Are you gonna do it? Are you gonna make the jump?
Uh, I want to real bad, and it's I am trying to talk myself into something, and I don't know where I'm going with it. But I feel like with 360, my efficiency goes up
Mhm.
because I become directional at that point, which I don't know. I guess it's something about seeing it that I
Mhm.
guess makes me feel comfortable in a weird way, which you can't see any of it anyway. So what's it matter?
Yeah, I think
Um,
it's just more efficient, right? Like efficiency on the
Castability
water.
wise, yeah, efficiency on the water and castability. I do like the idea live. I do like the idea of chasing them and being able to see them. I also know where that rabbit hole leads me.
Mhm.
Severe ADHD, where I just sit there and just keep
Maybe
going.
live is maybe 360 is the best bet then.
It could be. It could be.
Mhm.
And then there's also the option where you can lay that transducer on its side for a live and actually have that half dome pan
Right.
um, to do it that way, which has also crossed my mind as well. So I don't know. We'll see. It's on the docket for this year, and it's just something that I have not 100% committed to yet, and that's ridiculous that I haven't, and it bothers me that I haven't. But it's at the same time, it's like I have to get what I want, and I want to. It's not like it's going to be the last one I ever buy, but for some reason,
Mhm.
I'm treating it like it's going to be like the last one I ever buy, which is ridiculous.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, but
It's you're
like,
feeling like you're making this like huge life decision. Like, should I marry her? Should I not
you know what you do is I made a deal
with the
with my
quarter?
girlfriend. Is that you say, Mama Bear, I'm gonna buy you that $2,000 purse, and then
Yeah.
you're gonna go ahead and buy me that $2,000 15-inch screen,
15 screen.
and we're
15
gonna swap and make each other happy like that, so we don't have to feel guilty.
Now I will confess I've never actually used a Garmin. I know it's the hot thing right now.
Mhm.
I've always been a Lowrance or a Hummingbird guy,
Yeah,
and for multiple reasons, I've just always liked those two. I feel like I read them better, if that makes
yeah.
sense. And Hummingbird obviously is the king of the live, so that could be the transition, or not Hummingbird, but Garmin is the king of the live,
Right.
so that might be that transition. I
It
really don't
might be, or
I
you can
really don't
maybe.
think I have like 3. I'm not going Wheeler where I have like all 3.
Why don't you go 2?
I could go to, and I've contemplated that. I've
And
contemplated just keeping my Lowrance 9 and then just adding a live.
I don't know if do you know Matthew Brannon?
I don't think I
No?
do.
He fishes some of the Hobie circuits, American Bass circuits, Yakka Bass, and etc. But he fishes Hummingbird and Garmin. And
Mhm.
I don't have any sponsors with any electronics, but
No.
I'll tell you what, having two has crossed my mind multiple times where I think the Garmin is elite when it's live,
Mhm.
and side scan is okay. I think Hummingbird beats
Yeah.
side scan.
Yep.
And then what Matthew Brand says, quoted, Lake Master on the
Mhm.
Hummingbird will give you the most accurate sonar chart
That's
and
very
nautical
fair.
chart.
Yeah, I would agree there.
I'll go on Garmin's nautical chart and it says 100 yards out there's a hump out there, and I'll run over it and I'm like, there's no hump out here.
Yeah.
Right? But you go with a Hummingbird, it says there's a hump in the middle of the lake. There's going to be a hump in the middle of the lake.
Yeah, and I'd say Lowrance sits in the middle there on
Yeah.
those 2. And their mapping's getting better. CMAP now that they're using has really come a long way. But you know,
I think
I
I think you
always
hit it
went at
on the
Lawrence,
dot.
dude. I just always went Lawrence just because I felt like they offered the most in a package, if that makes sense. Like you've got
Yeah, I mean, all of us
one,
were there. All of us were
yeah,
there. It's like everybody hears the words Lawrence. Lawrence is almost like
yeah,
just that saying is like, oh, I have Lawrence's, but
yeah.
it's always been catchy since 2007 to me. Like everybody has, I think Lawrence was the standard. Made it the
It was,
standard.
and it's amazing. I don't know where they go from here. I mean, other than
Hmm.
being able to tell me what the difference between a bass and a walleye is underneath the water.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously the pixels are going to get tighter. They're going to get better. But
I think
what's
they're running.
next?
I think they're running two live scopes
Yeah,
transducers.
yeah.
They're
I mean,
running one to the left, one to the right now.
yeah,
Right. And I could see where that it's almost like a better live scan. It's a live side scan pretty much. And
yeah.
I get what they're trying to do. I really do. Um, but it's just kind of like just taking away from rotating the trolling motor and facing it left and then rotating to the
Well, and
right.
Hummingbird now has the lock where it'll like if you lock on a fish,
Lock
that
on the target.
transducer stays on that fish. I mean, it does like the whole
Yeah.
apparatus moves while your trolling motor
Right,
stays on
right,
spot
right.
lock. So
Right.
that's wild. Now, here's a question for you. Like when you're using the live,
Mhm.
as I have, do you see fish behavior different? Like as you're setting on those fish and you approach them with the trolling motor, can you watch those fish settle or disperse?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy.
There's times where if I'm rolling the troll motor too high, they'll just
Hmm.
bounce out,
Yep.
right? They'll just flock away real fast. But there's times where I'd creep up on them. I'm literally right on top of them on a brush pile in 10 feet of water,
Hmm.
and I can catch them right below the boat. Like I could drop my lure right below the boat and
Hmm.
stick one on a brush pile. And I've done that recently with a Bubba shot. Um, but there's fish behavior that I've learned that you just can't roll out anymore. There's, at my local pond, there's fish suspending out in 60 feet of water. They're
Hmm.
suspending in 5 feet of water.
Yeah.
And I caught a 9 pounder in 60 feet of water suspending right next to the surface
Yeah.
on an A rig. And I'm burning a lure in 60 feet in open water. I'm casting as far as it can. I'm just burning it where it's just below the surface, and I'm catching 4 and 5 pounders. And I'm turning off my live scope. Once I know kind of generally where they're suspended,
Hmm.
I could shut that thing off. I could take my kayak and put it on spot lock facing the wind and cast behind my boat and just burn that as fast as I can and catch 5 pounders on that. And if you telling me would I have done that in 2007 or 2008? Heck no. I was a jig fisherman. Everything
Right.
has to be on the bottom in order to get bit. That's how traditionally like the way that I
Oh yeah.
caught fish before. But now this has changed the idea of like fish are not always on the bottom.
Hmm.
The more active fish are going to be schooling up in 30 to 40 wolf packs up in open
Yep.
water, just chasing shad and etc. So it has completely changed the way that I fish, not just focusing on it, but actually
Learning fish
pinpointing
behavior.
exactly running where are they going to be living today, because the next day is going to be different, and then the next day is going to be different. Maybe they're on bottom, maybe they're suspended right below the surface. Maybe, you can't even see them because they're deep down in the mud.
Yeah. I think that's probably the most sound advice that you could give anybody is it's a tool that's teaching you more about the fish. You're learning how that fish reacts. I
Right.
think if anything, like you said, you're going to come away with a better understanding of the species that you're targeting.
Right. There's a science behind it.
Yeah.
It's not just, we're kind of like studying the fish pretty
Yeah.
much and trying to develop a pattern. Now, if I told some kid over at let's say lower Otay or something like that,
Hmm.
Clearwater Reservoir, just go ahead and drag a jig. You're gonna catch fish, right?
Oh yeah.
But
Throw the
I
jig.
probably wouldn't tell that guy that, because that's pretty much like good luck doing that, because that's not going to be the bite most of the time.
Yeah.
Now that I have live scope, I could tell people like how fish are positioned, what to look for,
Mm-hmm.
and actually tell someone the honest bite, because I've studied the fish with the electronics that I have,
Mm-hmm.
versus, oh, you're just going to get bit with a jig. Well, that's not always true, because some of our SoCal fisheries, we don't get like bit like a jig like we do over at Clear Lake or
Mm-hmm.
the Delta, or I don't know what other lakes, Paris with rock piles. Like sometimes grass fisheries, you're just not going to get bit by a jig as much as a fluke, a drop shot, a underspin, a spinner bait, a chatter bait, and etc. Honestly, I'm going to tell the guy after looking at live scope for 8 or 10 hours, and I'm going to tell him exactly where they're going to be at,
Mm-hmm.
and tell them to fish in the water column, up in the water column, or tell them to fish on bottom.
But secretly, does your heart want to throw the jig? Do you want
If
to flip
there's
it
a
in?
if there's a
Do you want to
bite,
flip? Do you want to
if
flip it in a nasty brush pile?
yes,
It's okay.
I mean, yes. If the bite is in, I have a rule. If the bite is in less than 3 feet of water and it's all on riprap and chunk rock,
Mm-hmm.
I want to pitch that jig in there, and I want to feel that thump, or a
Oh.
lay down,
Yeah,
like for
it's a drag.
sure. And then you just, I mean, it is the hook to set on. Like if you want to set on anything as hard as you can, it is going to be a jig.
Yeah, the rod just bends, it stops, and then it's just like
Yeah.
on. It's monumental.
Yeah, that's the fast loading lure as you can get,
It is just that straight up and down hook set, and just that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I think the only thing that comes close to that is fishing a frog, though.
I would have to say that the Bama rig is probably the most vicious hit that I have felt.
Really? The Alabama rig?
I feel like it is, yeah. I feel like it is, like, because,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Carolina rig's pretty cool, too. But, like, I don't know. There's just something about the aggression that one puts on an Alabama rig, especially when they first started to appear heavily.
Yeah.
And you got that first bite on it. It's just like, I can't get over the first time I ever caught a fish on the Alabama rig because it was so vicious.
Do you always have it tied on almost every single tournament after the ice melts?
No, not like I used to.
Oh, okay.
No, I'll throw a lot more singles. I'll throw a lot more single swim baits, and obviously
Spinner
everybody
baits.
throws spinner baits, chatter bait,
Yeah.
and I'll kind of go that way. I should have it tied on more.
Yeah.
But I don't know why. I just don't tie it on like I used to. It's not always there like it should
You
be.
gotta pick it up, man, because I tell you
I
what,
know.
at Folsom during tournament day, there was one brush pile, and I was casting it on the right and left side of it, and I'm literally bringing it to my boat and get 2 feet of visibility or less.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring it next to my boat, and I see him following my A-rig right next to the bow of my boat.
Gosh.
And he just hits it, right?
Yep.
First keeper, casts right to the left of it. I'm bringing it close to my boat, and then my boat is going in the opposite direction. It's going in a way where I don't want it to go. So I click my motor, and by that time, I finished with my retrieve. My bait's just hanging down right next to the side of my boat. And I turn off my motor, and I look to the right because I'm about to run into the bank, right? I look to the right, and my rod literally just goes dunk. Hit it right at the boat, dead sticking an A-rig.
It's wild.
Like, you gotta whip it out. You gotta whip it out.
I need to
hang it up like a chandelier and catch some fish.
Dude, there's nothing quite like it. Now here we can only have 2 hooks on the A-rig. So I think that's one of the things that slowed me down here was just that 2 hook rule, because it's like, dang it.
Don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. You know why? Because most of the time that's the back 2 or 3 hooks.
Yeah, it's the back 2 or 3, the one that's dotted up.
Yeah.
And that's a conversation we had over. We called it the podcast truck ride to Red Crest every day. We talked a lot about color and the A. A couple of people said, color doesn't really matter. There's use this color, that color, whatever. But then at the same time, you think about the A rig, and you go back to the teachings of the A-rig, and 9 times out of 10, they're going to hit that one that's got that little chartreuse dot, or the one that's just it's different color.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think, and then you look at Great Lakes smallies and the Zona show, for example, they get out there and they throw that Strike King, that siren color of fluke or Ned rig that's just like absolutely like the gaudiest looking chartreuse you've ever seen in your life.
Really?
And you can see it from a drone. Yeah, the smallmouth just tear it up. So color has to matter.
Yeah.
I don't know what they see. I can't ask them. I can ask them. They just don't tell me.
I think it matters with water clarity too.
You
know what I mean? Like I think color matters when it's like, does it pull a fish out of a brush pile or not? Yeah. In murky water and etc. If it's ultra clear, I'm more comfortable throwing like a shad translucent color. But if it's super muddy, I would throw chartreuse or white with maybe like a few natural shad looking baits on the back. But I mean, when they eat it. They'll take three swim baits in their mouth at a time.
Yeah.
They're not looking just for one shad. Sometimes they're looking for like 2 or 3 shad at a time.
How many they can get at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
I think if I was dealing with the muddy water that you guys are dealing with out there in California right now, I would probably just be on the bank throwing the jig.
Oh yeah. I mean,
I would have to. It's just law. That's just law.
I think that's the downside of live scope is that when you have live scope, sometimes you're always busy searching for fish that just don't want to bite. And then sometimes slowing down is the key, is throwing a jig, some at some brush piles or rock piles. Like that was my problem during this past tournament, is that I didn't find that secondary pattern that actually would hold up throughout the whole day. Right. Because of that muddy water. And that jig, my buddy caught one more fish than I did, and it really helped him out to bump up. But it's one of those things, I think, in a tournament, is that you have to have enough water to cover to find that consistent bite. Even though you found the fish, doesn't mean there's going to be a whole lot of that particular structure that you're going for. Yeah,
you're going from stump to stump to stump to stump.
Yeah.
Now here's a theory that my good friend Marcus laid to me, and I'm gonna throw it at you. With all these guys now, big boat, kayaks, whatever, a lot of them, with the sales at Bass Pros and everything that's gone on, there's a whole lot of people running live scope that wasn't. Do you feel like that as a lot of these people gravitate offshore to where we've all been all these years fishing offshore stuff, that fishing the bank's going to get better? Like Marcus totally believes that, like, okay, I'm bank fishing and everybody else is out here. They're all out here floating around chasing a ghost. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to bank fish.
Right.
These fish ain't been hit on all day.
My take on it is, I think it is good for bank fishermen and the bank. I think there's always fish on the bank, right? I don't think it's always going to get better, right? I just think that it will split the field up. That will fish more offshore, and then the other field will fish towards the bank, right?
Yeah, because there's always going to be that old timer that's like, I ain't doing that. If I can't see it, I ain't going to throw at it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think it'll work half and half. Let's just put it this way, like for instance, Red Crest that just happened. You just came from there.
Yep.
It was one all shallow. It was one all docks and shallow because the fish have moved up. There's times where I'm going to turn that live scope up. I'm going to pack up my live scope transducer. I'm going to put it away in my Airbnb, and I'm all going to do is throw a wacky rig Senko all day.
Yep.
There's going to be times like that, right? But then, go ahead, say it again.
No, I'm just saying definitely. That's 100%.
Yeah, but then there's times where like I have to have that live scope hooked up because I know there's 30 or 40 fish wolf packed together that are anywhere from 3.5 to 7 pounders, and they're going to give me 92 inches at any given point.
Yep.
There was a tournament that if I didn't have that live scope, the way how fast they were moving from shad to shad ball, in 60 feet of water, I could not keep up with them, and I couldn't target them if I didn't have live scope and running motor at 3.8 miles an hour, because I had to go 100% to chase those bass. And every time I catch one, they would disperse, they would go down to the bottom, and then they go back up, and then they collect themselves as a wolf pack again, and they'll start attacking shad from all the way from 1 foot of water all the way down to 30 to 40 feet down. So like I could see them visually attacking shad from all the way down to the depths to the surface. And not only that, another thing that I've learned with live scope is that you could follow a shad ball 200 yards, 200 yards, the same shad ball. And it's almost acting like there's a shad ball going down a freeway. And then down the freeway, there's these big old buses that come by and they just rail the shad ball.
Yeah.
Like, so I followed the shad ball for 200 yards, and I would catch fish on that shad ball with bass chasing that shad ball from random spots across that bank. And I would just run down that bank, keep on following them. And I tell you, I'd catch maybe 85 inches, no problem, just doing that method.
Nice.
So there's times where you need that tool, and there's times that you should pack it up, because it ain't gonna get you anything.
Yeah, I think that's going to always be the case.
Yeah.
I mean, with anything, I mean, you have to learn to evolve to the conditions that are out there. And if you can't do that, then you're always gonna struggle. You have to go out there and have an open mind. You got to be able to learn new things as you go. Sometimes you got to learn them on the fly.
Exactly.
And that ain't always the best or the most fun way, but you're going to be a better fisherman because of it.
Yeah, you're going to have some tools, just like everybody does.
We have crushed this thing out to about an hour and a half. So I know you've got somewhere else to be. I'm going to let you thank the people that you need to thank. Tell them where to find you on the social medias. And we'll close this thing out.
All right. So I'd like to thank Chad Brock foremost for inviting me on his platform to extend my reach to you guys. I want to thank Z-Pro Lithium this year. Without them, none of this would have happened. I would not be on the Yakabass Tour new series. So keep a lookout for that. It's going to be called the Yakabass series. I'm going to be fishing a couple of their events, and I'm going to try to put out the best content, period, possible that's in my capabilities. I want to thank S&M Custom Rods, Hook a Brother Up for rigging my kayak, Orion Coolers, Z-Pro again, my girlfriend that allows me to go 4 or 5 days without seeing her throughout the whole entire week to practice for these tournaments, and just everybody that supported me. You can support me by either subscribing or following me on Instagram. You can find it by Double Digit Angler on YouTube or Instagram. You can also find my page on Facebook with Double Digit Angler as well. But that's all that I have.
All right, man. Well, obviously, shout out to Orion Coolers. Pick you up a Orion Cooler, Core Series Cooler, JacksonKayak.com. If you need a fresh new kayak, check us out, JacksonKayak.com. Find your local Jackson Kayak dealer and go get in a dealership, take a test drive, whether it's a Jackson or any other boat.
Heck yeah, check out that Take Two. Check out that Take Two or that Jackson NAR. Yeah, those two.
The Bite FD. Just check them all out. There's a butt for every seat at your local Jackson Kayak dealer. Obviously, Bassco. Thanks for the swag, Bassco. We appreciate you. Z-Pro Lithium. I know Zach's not here, but Z-Pro Lithium's keeping us powered on our filming and photography adventures this year, and we are stoked about that. Happy to be working with the folks over at Z-Pro. So with that being said, we will see you guys Thursday night for a brand new episode of Jackson Kayak Dock Talk right here on I guess we're going to call it the Jackson Kayak Podcast Network. Throwing it out there. It's what it is now. Anyway, we will see you guys on the next one. Be good.
All right. See you later, guys.